Let me introduce myself first. My name is Timothy Rudd. I'm the director of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And again, it's my great pleasure to have you here and to be able to open this exhibition soon to the public. This is a show that is timely for us because it's being presented at the same time that the U.S. Open will be held here later this year in the middle of the summer here at the Marion Golf Club. We couldn't be more pleased to have this opportunity to present an exhibition that's related thematically to this wonderful event. As many of you know, the U.S. Open will be celebrating its 7th anniversary here in Philadelphia, and it's sure to be an event that shines a lot of light onto the history of golf here in Philadelphia, but also the city of Philadelphia itself. And we at the Philadelphia Museum of Art are delighted to be part of this. This exhibition is a smaller, streamlined version of an exhibition that was organized by the High Museum of Art in Atlantis, so I want to acknowledge their authorship of the show and give my thanks to our colleagues there for their willingness to share this with the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I'd also like to give a nod to our colleagues at the National Museums of Scotland, because many of these pictures come from there, particularly Charles Lee's great.
I ran into a friend of mine at Muirfield who was an artist, and he said they were mounting this art show, and it seemed to me a natural for the Open coming to Marion and have it here. And so with a bit of arm twisting with the museum here and arm twisting in Atlanta, we were able to get it here and particularly have it for the Open, which I think is a very appropriate thing to time.
Any idea how many patrons you expect to show up?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask the museum people that. I think we're booked almost every night during the Open for social affairs and the exhibition. So I think there's only Tuesday night left, and we have 2 people vying for that. So.
Is this making you a popular member at Marion these days?
Well, I've been trying to keep it under the under the radar at Marion, but Marion is going to do an evening here for its membership sometime before the Open, obviously, and I think they'll enjoy that.
Great. Thank you.
Let's talk about the exhibition as a whole. Sometime in 1844, probably at the time of the annual autumn meeting of the Royal and Ancient Golf Club, 4 Scottish gentlemen, famously now today, challenged each other to a 2-ball foursome match on the links at St. Andrews. 3 years later, the painting was, their match was commemorated in this painting by Charles Lees. Lees was a respected, but not at that time widely known Scottish painter. He'd actually grown up in Cooper, which is about 9-10 miles from St. Andrews. Over the course of the 3 years that Lees worked on this painting, he made over 30 sketches, seeking out most of the individuals who were represented in the painting, taking their likenesses, trying to capture a sense of their character, their personalities, which of course resulted in this very grand painting, 7 feet wide. It's painted on essentially the scale of a history painting from this period, and in which he has captured not only the 4 players and their caddies, but about 50 different spectators, all of whom are sort of riveted on the action. And since it's sometimes hard to understand how the pairs of players shake out, I'll point them out to you. One of the players is Sir David Baird, who's a man who is said to always have played in a top hat. Remarkable feat in itself. His teammate is Sir Ralph Anstruther, who's in the red coat, sort of pulling back. Baird and Anstruther are playing this ball, which is on the right side of the hole. Their opponents are Sir Hugh Playfair, a man who was the provost of the university for about 30 or 40 years, vital to the development of the modern town of St. Andrews. And he is playing with John Campbell of Glensibel, who's in this blue suit with a cigar, very, very confident that their ball, which has just been putted by Playfair, is going to go into the hole. One of the great ironies of this match is that we don't know who wins. The betting books for the Royal and Ancient Golf Club do not survive from these years, so we actually have no sense of the outcome, and we are, in a sense, in as much suspense as each of the 50 spectators who all turn their attention to the action in this picture. It is, of course, set on the links at St. Andrews, and quite as Timothy has mentioned, I was a student there for a number of years and actually spent very often in the mornings would run along the old course along the West Sands, and I'm always amused a little bit by this picture because there's not a hair out of place. It looks like a very calm day, and if any of you have been to St. Andrews, you know that the wind comes roaring off the North Sea, and it is in fact, I think one of the charms of this course is that it is very challenging. And sometimes in heavy winds, downright inhospitable to play golf here. Nevertheless, it is, of course, one of the great places and sites in which golf has been played. It's actually thought that golf may have been played as early as 1100 in Scotland. The first physical evidence that we get of golf in St. Andrews is about 1552, when we have student diaries recording students buying golf equipment. There's also notices that professors will be found in their office in the mornings, but on the afternoons, if you want to find them, they'll be on the course itself. You get a sense in this picture, as Lise has sort of given you the whole panorama of the town itself, and then you get the great sort of links land spread out around it. This is thought to have occurred on the fourth hole, which was often known as the ginger beer hole, where you could take a refreshment. And one of the details, which I find particularly charming in Lee's painting, is this young girl who's actually offering refreshments, probably ginger beer, to the various spectators. You'll notice that all of the gentlemen and even ladies who are watching the game are represented with tremendous care. They are actually all identifiable golfers and golf enthusiasts from the period. There's actually a number of publications where it will can give you actual identifiable sort of names and sort of golfing histories, essentially, of each of these people. Which leads us to sort of question the motivation behind this picture. Charles Lees, prior to this moment, had been strictly a portrait painter. He was born in Cooper, just outside of St. Andrews. As a very young man, he trained with Sir Henry Raeburn, who was the preeminent portrait painter in Scotland in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. And then following his period with Raeburn, Lees, like most Scottish artists, spent a period of time in Rome. Scottish artists in this period did not study in London. They went directly to Italy. And then from there, Lees was engaged in a number of portraits until this moment. This is the first time he tackles a sporting subject, and it's something he'll do again and again from the 1840s onwards. He did, for instance, a number of paintings of curling subjects, of skaters. And it's my suspicion that this picture was actually probably commissioned by a man named Alexander Hill, who was a very famous print seller in Edinburgh. Because Hill is the first person to own the picture, he bought it for £400, which is roughly the equivalent of about $40,000 today, so a very high price at the time. And what Hill does immediately after purchasing it is to have the work engraved, and we have a copy of the engraving in this exhibition. It's on actually the facing wall, and Hill sold hundreds of copies of the print. I think he quite sensibly recognized that there were at least 54 individuals here who would probably buy a copy, and many others who were interested in golf who would go on to purchase it. The size of the painting, its link to the engraving also starts to suggest something of the celebrity of golf in this period, and the fact that many of these individuals are quite noted figures. One of them that I'll point out to you is Alan Robertson, who is acting as a caddy here, but was himself a very prominent golfer.